My name is Jasmine Tsui. I also go by Jaz Tsui, depending on the context of which I am performing. I would consider myself to this day an all-around sort of artist, but definitely my step into creation would have been music. And so I do dance, music, art. I studied as a percussionist, and so most of my foundation is in orchestral performance. But of course, through the master's degree, I did a little bit of a pivot. I do more interactive and collaborative works that are a bit more experimental and contemporary. Most of the work I do these days is part of duo Cichorium, which is a duo comprised of Louis, Pino, and I. And what we do is that we create a lot of improvisational frameworks, which then eventually result in pieces or suites. And so I would say artist, a percussionist, and a collaborator. So I'll talk broadly about my composition process first. It is always rooted in a lot of play, and it's especially important that I'm able to work with my friend Pino because I don't really have all that knowledge or the proper terminology of how to wire everything, how to set up this perfect amount of delay and have this effect happen in the speaker. So what often happens is that I will bounce ideas and concepts off of him, and he will help realize them in a DAW or a max patch. And so that's how our compositions come together as a whole. In that realm of play, we do a lot of experimenting. And so when I mention I don't feel like a composer, it's because often we're usually just trying things out, writing ideas, talking about, oh, can we get a sound to make it sound like we're in a cave and we can hear the water dripping all around us, we can hear the ocean in the distance. So it's very multifaceted. There's like drawing, electronics, a little bit of building, DIY instruments, and then of course, figuring out all the effects afterwards or in the process. I think I'm a very visual-based person. If I'm thinking of delay, and if I were to show a visual of it, it's almost like thinking of shouting into a mountain and hearing an echo back. But if I were to visualize it, it's seeing these layers moving, like the same image moving over itself, and you can change the frequency of whether you want that image sliding over itself very long or if you want a big cascading gesture. One of the pieces I was going to talk about today is called Feedback Dreams, and it involves using a melodica, a music box, a no-input mixer, and a delay pedal. And so it's a little bit of a hodgepodge combination, but what we found is that we were able to get my music box into the no-input mixer. I believe the word Pino used was seeded into the no-input mixer, and then we fed all the resulting sounds into a delay pedal. So the delay was an effect, but we almost used the pedal as its own instrument, playing with the knobs and how it would affect certain parameters on the no-input mixer, and then with the music box and melodica coming in through a contact mic. In our piece Desiderium, which is part of our elemental suite, which is a big grand piece where each movement focuses on an elemental matter. So there's air, fire, earth, and the one I'm specifically speaking on right now is the water movement. So in creating this piece, it felt like a lot of writing, almost poetic, just prose, because we're thinking very scenically of how we wanted this piece to flow out. So I'd say in terms of imagery of the piece, you go from being inside a cave to entering a very beautiful beach island, and eventually the third part of the piece is you descending deep into the ocean. So throughout those three parts, we created a lot of different samples using DIY hydrophones and playing instruments underwater. So after we were able to get those samples, we threw a bunch of delay, reverb, and effects on it, and it really helped expand the room because, of course, we're creating all these sounds in a little studio basement, but our use of delay is to really broaden the sound world and to make it almost immersive and atmospheric. Speaking on the Earth movement now, it's titled Morphogenesis. For that, it was a piece that I built a 6-foot tall tree sculpture for and created a video component that projected images onto specific parts of the tree. And so handling a lot of the visual stuff, I could say it's almost like I'm applying musical effects to what I'm seeing. So we have a lot of layers going around. I almost think of that as delay, and then having an image do a really slow crossfade into maybe the same video that feels like a reverb because it's like you're seeing that image cycle over and over and over again. For the audio portion of that piece, I'd say we used a little bit less delay and more distortion, heavy sounds, because for the imagery in that piece, of course, it's all centralized around the tree, but the narrative throughout the work is, you're watching a sunset. Then the next part is a night storm, and then the following part, I always work in groups of threes. I always really like groups of threes, but basically the final portion is the next day, the sunrise after the rain. And so our sounds that we used were very, I want to say, we had visions of dirt and worms, and so we were thinking of a very underground, gritty, almost as if you're listening to the piece from inside a mound of dirt with some ants. I am so thankful to have Pino in my life because the way both of us work, we're very complementary because I always have a lot of ideas and sounds and worlds that I want to play in, but I don't have the knowledge or the resources on how to even execute them. Like, I'd have an idea, but it's like opening Max on a blank canvas. It's like, I don't even know what object to put on here to even start. So having a sort of like translator to help bridge the gap between like practical crafting arts and music technology has been a big game changer for us because the works that we create aren't just taking place in one realm, like in the realm of music. It's like we're able to elevate it and tie in visual art, theater, projected visuals, a bit of sculpture making, and it feels just like a very rich environment to make music and make art in. If you're just starting out, something that makes it a little easier is, of course, if you're more of an artist and less inclined into music technology, find a music technology friend. Find someone who is immersed in this world and maybe wants to step in, because going back to Pino and I being very complementary, a way that we have simply labeled ourselves is, I'm the one who has the ideas, and then Pino is the one that helps facilitate those ideas. So we found it's like, I have ideas, I don't know how to do music tech. And he was, I can do music tech, but I have no personal ideas of what I want to do with it. And so I think those connections we make in collaboration is what I want to highlight most, because that has been the most fulfilling and enriching.